Welcome back to Raised by Her. Please feel free to continue to like, subscribe, and listen. We love hearing from you guys.
Yes, we do. It's wonderful.
Yeah,
How are you?
I'm okay. I had a chaotic start to the week.
Yes, you did.
Yes, it was so there was the first big snow here in Ohio, and
And
I
throughout the Midwest. It wasn't
was it
just
South the
it
Midwest?
was yeah, it was throughout the
Okay, it felt
Midwest.
personal.
Oh,
Like it
I
was
under
snowing
okay.
on me as I was trying to get through my
Okay.
Monday morning.
Early Monday morning.
Early Monday morning, and so I was in a car accident on my way to my first meeting, and,
But
it's
you're
been
okay.
a
You were okay.
I'm okay, the guy who I hit
Mhm.
was very nice, and so it all worked out, but I hadn't been in a car accident in a really long time.
Well, this is a good thing. Yes.
This is
I'm
really
glad that you have not been in a car accident in a long time. So
Yeah, what, you have you been in car accidents?
I have. Mhm. A couple of them, and it's not a good feeling. In fact, there's a fear element, and there's a sense of lost, not only your freedom, but the car being completely and totally destroyed. In a sense, the most traumatic car accident that I was in, you were a little girl still in sitting in your car seat in the back of the car, and we were leaving church and your father hit some black ice, and the car went from one side of the highway to the other side of the highway and turned all the way around, and it was completely and totally destroyed. The car was.
I think I remember that. I don't think I was in a well, I don't know. I if this is the same car accident, I remember being, in the back seat, and I remember it like, the divider on the highway, like, coming through and, like, coming right over me. That's what I
Yes,
remember.
yes. Well,
Is that the same car accident?
yes, but it
Okay.
was a toddler's car seat. You weren't in.
Oh, yeah, well,
You weren't in. You weren't
okay.
in a baby
From
car
my
seat. Like a,
perspective, okay, I
right.
was
You weren't a
gotcha.
yes. That was a pretty traumatic car
Yeah.
accident, and what's fortunate is that we were driving actually your grandmother's car, and, it was a big car, and so the firemen and the policemen were talking among themselves about how bad the accident was, and
Were you like, "I can hear you."
well, yes, and what the outcome could have been based upon the way that
Mm.
the car was, and so I just remembered that particular experience, and so but everything worked out
Yeah,
okay, so
everything worked out
and
okay.
everything worked out okay
It
for
did,
you.
yes, mine wasn't unfortunately that bad. I was, pulling up to a light, and when I hit the brakes, the car just didn't stop, it just kept going, and so that's why I hit the person in front of me, but I do understand, like, that I wasn't afraid, probably because I wasn't going fast,
Mhm.
and I was like, well, I realized that I was going to hit him, there was nothing I could do about it, but I was also not going fast, so I was like, "I wonder how this is gonna go," was
Right.
the thought I remember having, and then, the front of the car is all messed up, but he just had, like, a couple scratches.
No control is what you don't have at that moment when the brakes don't work
Yeah.
because and you're sliding, and that's what I remember your father saying too, that there was
There's
nothing
nothing you
he
could do,
can
yes.
do, and so
Driving in the winter.
mhm.
Is this why people go and, like, buy vacation homes in warm places so they can just, like,
So you don't
completely
have
in
to
the sun?
drive.
They don't have to drive in the
Well,
snow and be in the snow ever?
unfortunately, generally the first snowstorm in any given area, there is an increase in terms of accidents. And the police officers have said it's not that we don't know how to drive in inclement weather. It's just that we've been so used to driving in the other weather that we're not paying the same amount of attention the very first snowstorm.
Yeah, they didn't even send a policeman, it was a detective that came out, and he was like it was 8:45-ish in the morning, and he was like, "The police are just inundated with calls from car accidents
Mhm,
this morning,
mhm.
and you are my 20th stop." So, like, the detective team is supporting the actual police team because there's so much car crash activity, and it's not even 9 AM, and you are my 20th call.
My
I
goodness.
know.
But it was a pretty nasty snowstorm, and they had predicted it, but you didn't really think it was going to be a couple of inches and ice. And it was very cold that morning as
It
well.
was freezing. I've lost trust in the meteorologists. I've lost trust in, like, the weather reports.
And why is that?
because I feel like they're never accurate.
Well, they are, um, but, weather patterns change, and so
Mhm.
the technology is so much better now than it's ever been before, so
You're saying I should gain trust over time, not
well,
not lose trust.
it's supposed to be better.
Okay, I
But I
meant to
do
be better. I
understand.
just
Maybe you're paying attention to it now in a different kind of way or not.
or not. Yeah, I mean, no, they were impacted by the weather.
Yes, we
I'd
are.
like to know if it's gonna rain or not going to rain or how cold it's going to be. Like, all these things matter, and I just feel like the weather it's just so unpredictable, but I guess it is what it is. We can't control everything.
That is true. Your grandfather, who used to work at one of the General Motors plants and used to have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go to work, got used to being in early morning weather. And when retired, and I used to have to get up early because I was working in broadcasting, he would call me in the morning and he would give me a weather report. And I think it was so
Aw.
funny because I'd say, "Daddy, thank you." But I could actually turn on the TV or
I mean, his
this.
report is probably more reliable though,
Well,
because
it
he was
was
out yeah,
because he was
yeah.
yeah,
That one I would have trusted. That would have caused me to regain trust. Yeah.
so
I get a
I could
personal
understand
report,
that,
yeah.
but yeah, he did that for many, many years, and I
Aw.
thought that was so sweet.
That's very sweet.
Yeah,
That's very sweet.
but,
So that was a start to my week in all the winterness, but you have been in non-winter weather.
I
You've
had
been down south in the sun.
I was in Louisiana.
How was it?
It was 78 degrees and
That's what I'm
wonderful.
talking about.
Yeah. It was,
I I understand the pool.
yes, 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 it was, this was my trip to New Orleans for, an African American women's social organization conference that I went to, and it was just wonderful. It was fun, it was a lot of laughter, people seemed to be relaxed and glad to be together. And this conference and this organization is made up of more mature women. So although there are some younger women your age, but there are a number of women that were my age and older. And so the interaction, the memories, the thoughts, and how we're getting together at a time when there are so many challenges in the world, and we still make it a priority to have this sisterhood kinship and to be able to come together and to be able to share the good times and to support one another in the challenging
Oh,
times.
it's a blessing to have that type of sisterhood and camaraderie. So what do you all talk about? I mean, I know what me and my peers talk about, but what do folks in their 70s talk about? Because I'm not in the room.
You
They're
know,
not in the room. I'm not in the room.
well, grandchildren, a
Okay.
lot, so I didn't have anything to really, to offer that particular
Sure. Yeah.
conversation. One of the conversations that we were talking about our children and what our children were doing, professionally, and one of the ladies at the table said, "Well, what's been interesting is my daughter got married, and she has, hyphenated her name." And there were 5 ladies at the table at that particular moment,
Mhm.
and we all said, "Well, we hyphenated our name way back then, way back when."
Oh, okay.
And I said, "My daughter has hyphenated, her name," and so we got into a conversation
Some
about
strong progressive women if they were
very,
doing it
very
back then.
progressive women and why that was really necessary, or why is it necessary today.
Oh, necessary? I don't know that it's necessary, but I love the fact that it's a choice. I mean, I'm like you said, you raised me with a hyphenated name, so people have thought I've married since the age of like 11. You know, like this child bride with a hyphenated last name. And but I've always loved having a hyphenated last name. Actually, that's not true. When I was younger, like learning to write. I was gonna say read and write, but probably
Mhm.
mostly write. I did find it challenging because everybody else could, like write their name with
Quickly.
yes, exactly, and I'm still, like, learning all the extra stuff, but once I got past that part, I've loved having a hyphenated last name, and then when I got married, that's when it really came up, I'm like, "Uh-oh," because I didn't want 5 names. I didn't want my first name, middle name, 2 last names, and then and then my husband's name too, and so, I think he and I talked about it a little bit, and he was so cool, and I appreciate him. At least I remember the conversation being like this, and he was like, "Okay, if it's important to you, I get it." And then actually, much later, he was like, "It actually did bother me a little bit, but now getting to know you even more and your family, I can understand why you wanted to keep that kinship with your family."
The conversation really had to do with the point of professionalism in one's life and what you're connected to. And so the 3 ladies at the table that had the hyphenated last names talked about the fact that in their profession, it was easier for them. One was in healthcare, the other was a professional in higher education. And of course, I was in broadcasting. And so being able to connect with my maiden name and then my married name was something that was significant in terms of being able to sort of move your profession forward and people easily being able to identify with you. It, for your age group and the conversation we were having about our daughters, it appeared to be not only something that was acceptable and popular, but they started talking about men like your husband. The fact that men who could be comfortable with a wife who had a hyphenated last name or kept their own name for whatever reason is not necessarily something that men of yesterday would have embraced in a way that was easy and significant. And I can remember the conversation with you or with your dad. He said, "Well, I don't care what you call yourself, just as long as you're my wife," you know. So that was
A
okay.
man before his time in that
Right,
way.
in that way. But,
That's
one of
very
my uncles and then some of his family members couldn't understand that they were not familiar with that kind of mindset, and so
yeah.
there was a lot of family discussion.
Lots of family discussion. Well, it's a nightmare to change your name. I think that was actually my main deterrent. Like once I found out like all the paperwork and all the agencies, and then also yes, the professional piece, because I do have a distinctive name. I was like, this is ridiculous. And so I was like, they must not really whoever they is, they must not really want me to do this because they made it too difficult.
Well, I think, back in the day, women really didn't have a presence or a particular, notoriety in
Sure.
terms of who they were, and so it wasn't really important. It's what we've talked about before. Women, you couldn't get credit back there, and your grandmother was very upset when she could not get credit, and she was a businesswoman, and so there was a lot of conversation about the way it used to be and the way it is today.
The way you okay. I had a boss once that her and her husband created their own last name.
Oh,
So, yeah
really?
yeah, so they didn't take or I do think men might have an issue taking on the woman's last name, although some men do.
Some men do,
Yeah,
some
so
men
it can
do.
be any but I had never heard of creating your own last name before. What they did, they took their family names were important to both of them for different reasons, so they just combined, um, their last names and made up some new name. They really did, yeah. I never
Wow.
heard of it before,
Oh,
but then
that's
I would
great.
see since then, I guess I was looking out for it, I occasionally would see, like, news stories, and it's a thing that people do.
Hmm. Well, I mean, you have the freedom to create your life in the best way that works for you
Different
at
strokes
that
for different
particular
folks.
time. Yes. And then there was a conversation about where you got your name from. You know, how was your daughter Ronita named? How was Donica named? And then other people started talking about how they were named. And family names and traditions are important connections and history. And so that was an interesting part of the conversation as well.
How did you get your name? I mean, I know how I got my name, I've heard that story, but how did you get your name? I can't remember.
Um, your mother, my mother, your grandmother wanted to name me something Nita. She always liked the name Nita, Nita.
Okay.
And because her name was Rosa,
Mhm.
then she decided to take the RO from her name and then the NITA. And that's one of the reasons why it was separated because she wanted the distinction of Ro and then space Nita.
Gotcha.
So that's how Ronita was developed. Now, I'll tell you, my dad, your grandfather, wanted to name me Frankie Lynn
His name was Frank.
because his name was Frank.
I mean, I understand.
Mhm.
How would you have I mean, you would've been fine either way.
No.
No. You would not have been fine
No.
either way.
I was really glad that even at the age of 20, your grandmother said, "I don't think Frankie Lynn would be the best name for her." So, yes, right.
Alright, so those are the conversations that, in your words, mature
Well,
women
we were just talking about life and talking about how different things are because as I said, the conversation went into what kind of life our kids are living now, where they live, if they're back in town. I talked about the fact that you all had moved to Dayton, Ohio,
Mhm.
and how meaningful that was to me, and then other people began to talk about where their kids are living and how often they visit
Mhm.
or not.
Or not. Right.
And so it was, yeah, but that was a part of the conversation. The other part of the conversation that took place was traveling and where do you enjoy going? What do you do now? Are you involved in volunteer organizations? Are you still doing some work? How are you using your skill sets? Retirement being on the minds of some of the women as
Mhm.
well. And so we talked a little bit about that in certain areas, but we also talked about the fact of the needs of today, what children need today, what their grandchildren need today, what our sons and daughters need today, because there's been this disconnect with the real world of connectivity, people, places, and things.
So what do we need?
We need to get outside more. We need to be able to enjoy nature more, some of the things that we've talked about in the past.
Yeah.
We need to get to know our neighbors. Need to be able to relate to one another and not necessarily be looking so much on our phones and
Mhm.
our digital devices, but to look in people's faces and to connect and communicate, because that's how you really get to know someone. And really getting to know someone, you have the opportunity to experience the essence and the soul of that person.
I mean, I think this you don't think you can get to know somebody virtually really well?
No.
Really?
Mm-mm.
Um, I'm thinking from a professional sense. I've worked with quite a few people overseas, and it required me to be able to build out relationships with people who were not even on the same continent as me. And I built out some really, really amazing friendships. And I did eventually meet them in person, but which was amazing. But I feel like it was amazing only because we were able to build out that really strong relationship first, and that was all virtual.
You had some things in common that you were able to share, but there is a barrier that exists when you're on a screen and you're communicating. What we used to say in theater when I was in plays and acting, we had an opportunity to develop a connection with the audience, a connection with the people that were listening to us and watching us on stage. When I got into broadcasting and we were behind the camera, or if I'm in radio, we were behind the microphone, we had to use our language and had to use a different kind of connectivity because the audience is responding to you differently and seeing you differently. And so there is a different kind of communication skill that you use, or a different kind of connectivity. I mean, we're up
But
close and personal.
we are up close and personal, but I also wonder if it's exactly what you said, it's just a different skill set that hasn't been fully developed because people,
Perhaps.
um, for the most part, generally have been, raised to connect in person, and so we're in that moment in time where that shift is happening and people are really struggling with either learning that new skill set in terms of developing relationships.
When I am talking to you and we are personally in the same space, I have your full attention. When you are in different spaces and on camera, you can be doing 2 or 3 things at the same time. In fact, I hear people saying, they're multitasking, they're doing this. They may or may not be paying full attention to you. And that's why I said that it's difficult many times to develop that closeness, that connectivity.
I feel like if what's going on is either interesting enough or important enough, they I'm like, that sounds like the role of the person,
Okay,
I don't
okay,
know,
all
hosting the
right.
meeting or delivering the information to
Sure.
be able to engage in a certain way to keep the attention of the audience or the person. Because you're it's again, it's just a different skill set.
It
You'd
is.
have to perhaps navigate a little differently than you would if we were in the same room.
You are navigating a little bit different. So, uh, but
So that's the part of the discussion.
that is part of the
Okay.
discussion too. So, but it was a good time,
It sounds like it.
overall. And one of the best experiences that I had in terms of communication was we went to a place that has it's called Mardi Gras World. And
Okay.
Mardi Gras World is located in New Orleans in very, very large hangars, almost like airplane hangars, but it's hangars that have all of the different floats and all of the different displays that they have when they do the Mardi Gras parades.
Okay.
And this particular location has a factory that builds floats for parades all over the United States and all over the world. The company builds 80% or more of all of the floats for parades throughout the world. And so reading all about that and seeing how they do that and hearing about the history of float making was fascinating to me. And I just happened to be in an environment where one of the tour guides was available to just talk about the process. So, if you're going to have a parade in New York City, like the Macy's
Mhm.
parade, and you want a float created, then you work with an artist, a designer, you send that to them, and then they come up with the color scheme and what's necessary, and then this big machine can create what the float will look like. And they can create at least 3 of them a day, and then
Wow.
they send them all over the world. So I had all kind of questions.
I bet. Yeah, this seems like it's right up your alley.
Well, no, it
It's
was
like, wait a minute.
fascinating to me, and so I said, "So you create the floats for the Rose Bowl parade?"
Right.
"Yes." "You create the floats that for the various games where people are represented?" And she goes, "Yes." And then we had a chance to tour the facility, and it was beautiful. I mean, creative, and for all the major sporting events, any kind of big, huge displays, they do it there. So this company is
Interesting.
really
I
cool.
wonder, I mean, I know parades are a very big point of celebration for folks all around the world and all different types of cultures, but I wonder if they have maintained their popularity. Like, is it as popular today in 2025 as parades and floats and things were in, I don't know, 2010?
I would think that it's definitely popular. I don't know what if it's more popular or as popular
Mhm.
because they have many factories around the country. This particular company, they are the ones that do it for, as I said, for more than 80% of the floats that are created around the world. And so there must be not only a market for it, but there must be an interest in still having the various big, beautiful floats that you see. It was just really kinda
It
cool
sounds
to
interesting.
hear that. So
I didn't even know that was a thing. I knew Mardi Gras was a thing,
mm,
but I'd never
right.
heard of
I didn't
Mardi Gras World.
no, I did not know it was a thing either. I did not know that, there was one company that really dominated the
They found their
creation.
niche.
Yes, yes, they did, but it was quite fascinating. The tour, guide was a woman, her name was Carla. She has lived in New Orleans her entire life. But the other part of the conversation went to I asked her about her family, and her parents and her grandparents died during Hurricane Katrina
Mm.
when the levee was opened up, and so and she had I believe it was 9 brothers and sisters, various ages, and she's one of the older brothers and sisters. So the older family members then raised their younger brothers and sisters, younger
Wow.
siblings, and so she talked about, living during that particular time, and they had to live for almost a year in the Superdome, and, people were bringing in, food and, of course, places for them to sleep, and so hearing that history that existed during that particular time and how people coped and,
And hearing it firsthand.
well, yes, and how it
Good for
really
you. Wow.
impacted her, but, she was doing fine. She'd been working at Mardi Gras World for 10 years, and she had gone back to school. Of course, she had helped to raise her siblings, and she had a daughter, and her daughter was now, working at Mardi Gras World too, and so it's a family thing. So,
Wow.
yeah,
It sounds like this trip hit on a number of different
it
levels.
did, it did.
Okay.
So blessed, and I was able to get back
Yeah.
safely because
Yeah. How was the
air
travel? Because,
uh,
you know,
it was,
you were traveling when the government was still shut down.
yes, it was, challenging for many, but I got back safely, and that's what I really focused on.
Okay.
So
Yes.
that's good. So, yes, all is
Okay.
well.
Okay. Good. 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 It sounds like it.
Yeah,
And you are ready to be back in this winter weather.
that's right. Yes. I like seasons. What can I say?
You
I
like
do. I like
seasons. Yeah,
seasons.
I like seasons better last week, but I'll get
Well,
back
that's
there.
true. You have to. Yes, and you liked building snowmen when you were growing up, and you liked playing in the snow when you were, and you
That's
liked
not something that's transitioned to my adulthood, though.
the little sleigh rides and those kind of things. No.
No, and I can say that, factually because last year it must have been last year when, my husband is a kid at heart, and he likes to play,
Yes, he does
and
like to
so
play.
when there was a lot of snow, he was like, "Let's go make a snowman," and I was just like, "Oh my gosh, it's gonna be so cold. I don't even know if I have the proper gloves, proper hat." It just sounds awful. Anyway, that's how I can say that that's not my first, that's
Did
not
you
my
do it?
first choice.
Did you go and play in the snow somewhat?
I think my snow activity I shoveled.
Okay.
Does that count?
All right. Okay. Well, you were out in it,
I was
so
out.
yeah.
Yes, we were out in the snow together in one way or another.
He should have called me. I would have been out there
Yeah,
helping him to build the snowman and have a snowball fight and, play with you and the dog and,
he needs to
just
talk to the other Hollis Saunders.
It is. Yes. Yeah.
But in terms of like winter activity, the next thing I want to do is dog sledding. When we were planning our trip to Alaska,
Oh, right.
which we had
Yes.
canceled due to COVID,
Yes.
and fight with anyway, we never go
Fight
into
for
that.
fast, I had that.
Yeah, it's fight to get all her money back and everything. I fully intend on booking that trip again, but I was so excited for the dog sledding excursion that we were going to do, and
It
so
it
that's
did
still in the
sound
back
like fun.
right?
Yeah, yes, and Alaska just sounds like a place that is not only a destination place for someone who likes nature and doing something new and different, but it's a place that is not over inhabited. So
Wait a minute, do you like nature?
oh, well.
Right. Selective.
Uh, it's true. It is, yes, yeah, because we've talked about that.
We have
Yes,
talked about that. Yeah,
so
yes, yes.
so selective.
Very particular experiences in nature
That
you're
is
open
true.
to.
There are well, you have to be particular. You can't just decide
Some people do. Some people do.
all nature,
Yeah,
everything.
they'll go out and pitch a tent, they'll go out to any cabin, they wanna hike 35 miles a day.
No, that's not
They folks are out there
yeah.
doing all the doing all the things.
No, that's not me.
Okay, I was just for clarity.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. You already knew the
I
answer
of
to
course
that
I
too.
know, yes. I knew the answer because I know what my answer would be, so
Yes, but that's okay. That's good. So
we adventure in other ways.
this is true. Very, very much so. Yeah. So what else is going on?
Ooh, okay. What else is going on? Well, you just gave me Michelle Obama's new book
I did.
called The Look, and I've been hearing about it on all the different podcasts that I listen to, and so I'm excited to look through it and experience her through her fashion and her fashion evolution. And I think it's really cool that she's taking this time to also honor the folks who've been behind the scenes who helped her in her fashion evolve. And one of the interviews that I heard from her, she was talking about how she felt like this was the right moment because they have been out of office for over a decade. I was like,
Mhm.
"Has it been that long?"
Wow. Really?
Yes, it's been that long apparently.
Huh.
And how she felt like this was a because there was so much else going on that she didn't
Mhm.
feel like that was the point in time to talk about it. But now is a good time to talk about the power of fashion. And then also um what role women's appearances play in their lives in professional settings and in public figure settings. And she talked about how she obviously, when she was, giving presentations and speeches, her content was fantastic, but regardless of whatever she was talking about, articles would always start off with, "She was wearing."
That's exactly right. Yes.
So thank you for the book, and I look forward to looking through it.
Okay, well, after you have a chance to look through it and read some of it, not just look through it,
Mm,
not just
okay.
not
Read,
just the
Donna, gotta
not
read.
just the photographs, then we might have a conversation about that because not only does she talk about the fashion and the eras and how people read her, but she talks about making a statement with what you have on, what you're wearing, and so I want to talk about that too.
We're gonna
So
talk about making a statement via fashion.
your fashion, how you look, the various transitions of hair and hairstyles, and how that impacted her
Mhm.
being the first African American first lady, and
Well, it evolved.
it did.
Yeah,
In
it's
fact,
yeah. I
That's
remember our family conversations when they first came on the scene. We were like, "Now,
mhm,
wait now."
yep, so, and that's not just the majority population, it was the, minority population too, and it yes, so when you read it, when you have a chance, then we'll talk about it. Okay, let's see what you have to say. Thank you.
You know,
That's good.
I don't like to, referring to people of color as the minority population. We are the global majority.
Well, you're absolutely correct.
So
That is we are the greater
that's how
majority.
I like to refer to us,
Okay, alright.
global majority.
Uh-huh. The folks of color were the global majority. I like that.
Yeah, I love
Okay.
that reframing, right?
Yes, that's true, and that's a really good point.
Mhm.
So, remind me of it in case I slip back.
Flip back into,
Yes, yes,
past
okay.
teachings.
Yes, yes. No, I mean, I think it's a good point because the connotation is so important in the language you speak and in the words you say and what it means, and so that's a really good point.
Words matter.
They do matter.
Yeah,
They do matter,
yeah.
so
And, we've been on a couple of guest podcasts this past week, which has been super cool, and, it's been great to, meet the different people and meet
mhm.
their audiences and have really excellent conversations. And I thought of that when you were talking about the power of language because when we were on, Positive Talk Radio,
Yes.
um the lead guy there, I can't remember his name's Kevin.
Kevin,
He was
yes,
so amazing. He was surrounded by women because it was
yes,
us and then his co-host.
yes.
And it was just so dynamic because it was an intergenerational conversation. You all could relate on some things, and me and his co-host could relate on some things. But
Mhm.
then the language thing popped up
You did.
quite a
You
bit.
did, yes.
And so it's just if folks get a chance, like check it out because we had a really good time, and intergenerational language was a piece of what we discussed.
One of the words that he talked about that was so funny was the word dope
Yeah,
and how back in the baby boomer, childhood days,
yeah,
that was something that was a negative connotation, and someone recently had said to him that, "Hey, man, that's dope," and he thought, well,
that
that
was
was
rude.
something negative. Yes, something negative, and the guy said, "What why are you looking like that?" And so he shared with him the his interpretation. He goes, "Oh, no, 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 man. That's like that's where it's at. That's cool. No, I wouldn't say that about you." And so speaking of language, so you just never know.
Was that your experience of that word, dope?
Yes.
Oh, okay, okay, so you knew
Yes.
exactly what he was talking about
I knew
then.
what he was talking
Okay.
about
I didn't know
because
what he was talking about.
oh,
So I
oh,
was learning. I was like,
so
"Oh, I
he
had
was
no idea that
listening.
that word has evolved over time."
Yes, yes. There are several words that evolve over time in terms of the meaning, but also the interpretation of what the words mean. So they could mean something different to you than they meant to someone else. We talked a little bit the on our former podcast about 6-7 being the dictionary.com's word of the year. And since we've talked about it, I've been reading other articles about it,
Mhm.
and it was created by tweens, the young people who are developing their own language themselves. It's not a language for me, it's not a language for you. It's their own language and how they want to communicate. And they really don't want adults trying to figure out their language or telling them that that doesn't make sense because, when we said 6-7 is not a word.
We have feedback. Like, what
And
is
they're
happening?
saying, "We created it. That's ours." There was an article in New York Times this past week that indicated that what we adults try to do is to take the language and take the trends and take the things that were meaningful to us, and then make sure that the younger generation has an understanding of it, and we try to put our context around it,
Mhm.
which is why young people have started creating their own language.
They're over it. They wanna do their own thing.
Mhm.
I wonder how that's going to translate once they enter the workforce.
Well, these were tweens. So you're talking about 11, 12, 13
Right,
year old.
but in 10 years, maybe it'll evolve. Maybe they will, want to learn how to talk to folks who are older than them. Um, I don't I don't know. I think my interaction with tweens is quite near 0,
Okay. All right.
which is fine for me.
Well, yeah, yes.
Like, I
Yes.
set my life up that
Right.
way.
Right.
But that's fascinating.
was fascinating to me, and what I think to your point about what's going to happen when they transition and they're older, I think they'll have a perspective of why it was so important for the adults to try to understand and communicate and participate in the conversation. That's the other part of it, because what adults
Mhm.
want to do is to be able to communicate so we can have this relationship back to that that is real and not just superficial. But if you don't wanna be talking to them or explaining, they didn't like explaining themselves, is
Mhm.
what the article said in the New York Times. Why should we have to do that? So,
Fascinating. Well, I look forward to seeing how that evolves, because I was unaware, but also, yeah, I'm not, their target audience. They're not trying to communicate with me, so I would be unaware of their
that's
own
true.
language.
That's true.
Huh.
Yeah.
It's a lot going on.
It is
Different
a
languages, new languages.
it it is, but it also, reminded me of a conversation I was, having with one of your aunts about when we were young, the kind of games we used to play.
Okay.
And so we were talking about we used to play hopscotch, and so you used to play hopscotch. I don't know if you remember that. It's where you draw the numbers on, the concrete,
And then you,
1.
jump with, 2 feet and then 1 foot, then 2 feet, then 1
Yeah,
foot.
you have yes,
So
you
is it is that the
yes,
one?
yeah, you go,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. I'm like,
yes, that's
"What is that?" That's
hopscotch.
awesome. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, then, yes, I did do that.
okay, all
Yes.
right, and then we had Simon Says, where you
Mhm.
were, attempting to be able to act out.
Duck, duck, goose.
Yeah,
That's the
okay,
one that
you
comes to me.
remember that. Okay, all right.
Let me think that.
Okay, all right. But she asked me, do I remember playing jacks? I said, "Oh, yes." I hand coordinating. So you have 10 jacks and you,
Oh, you, bounce the ball.
yes,
Okay, yes,
yes,
I have
yeah,
played.
yes. So we were talking about that. But kids today don't do that. They don't play those kind of games because they're very much into their digital
They're
devices
playing
and
their
their
video
phones and
games.
yes. And so they've missed out on some of that interaction. And whether it was we had Red Rover, we had Mother May I, we
But aren't
had
they still
dodgeballs
interacting?
with the devices.
No, 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 with each other. Because when they're playing video games, it's not just them and the screen, my understanding,
Okay.
because 'cause I'm not a gamer. Um,
Really?
I know, shocking. But my understanding is that they are also, they're in communities and they're playing, with each other, so
Okay.
they're in a game with 3 or 4 or many, many more hundreds of other people, playing, and they're talking to each other either through the device or
Okay.
through
All
some.
right.
So I think it's just different.
Okay.
All those basics in terms of connection and conversation and community building are there, it's just different.
And different is okay. It allows us to be able to grow, and we know that people change, and we know that circumstances change. It just concerns me that perhaps there may be something missing, and I wanna make sure that you don't miss out on an experience that is so important to your opportunity to grow and develop.
I think a balance is important. I think it will be a mistake if humans ultimately lose a human connection. I think there can be some negative repercussions from that, and also, I think if we look at the data and the science behind it all, we do see some troubling trends,
Such as
of
such as?
such as an inability to communicate more broadly, such as isolation, and loneliness, such as a real, I guess, depending on the age level, even like a dip in cognitive abilities. So I just think there's a way to be able to do it, but I wouldn't be as dismissive of how young people are living in this digital world as I feel like some people are, because I don't think it's a no, it's all bad. I just think it's a understand kind of where we are and then to integrate ways to be able to manage it better instead of being just so negative about everything.
I agree with you that it's important to be able to understand and to be able to figure out the best way to sort of manage the difference. And I too become concerned about the isolation and become concerned about whether it's real and authentic in terms of the relationships. In the podcasts, one of the podcasts that we taped this week, the question of relationships between men and women and how uh, things have changed and how one reacts. And we were asked the question, how important is it to be able to have the kind of communication intergenerationally, like
Mhm.
we talk about here, with individuals of the opposite sex?
We were asked that question. I think my reaction was, "This would be a whole other podcast." So we talk about like all the intricacies of male female relationships. Yeah.
Well, and how how different is it for us, for me as a baby boomer and for you as a millennial in terms of that kind of relationship? Has technology had impact in terms of how we interact with the opposite sex? And I just thought it was a really kind of interesting way to sort of approach it.
I mean, I think probably. Oh, absolutely. That's why you have all these I mean, but I also owe my marriage to the internet, right? I met my husband on a dating app. And but for being on that dating app, we would have probably never met because our circles were totally different. I I can't think of a situation of how our worlds would have collided in any way. And so it's a mechanism for meeting people, even more so today than it was back then. If we're talking about that stage of a relationship, I also think that you can utilize technology to be able to have long distance relationships in a way that might have been more difficult before because now you can FaceTime and I mean, you can just do all types of things, I think, to strengthen a relationship.
Sure.
There's probably negative, not probably, I know that there's negative aspects to it as well, but I think that's like with all technology. Like you can either use it for good or you can use it for bad. It's just
Yes,
who are
yes.
you as a person and how do you utilize
You can use
things.
your superpower
Yeah,
one way or the other,
exactly,
and,
exactly.
so I yeah, I get it. Well, we'll see. I think the jury is still out on what the outcome is going to be long term, so there are possibilities. I wanted to share with you that, that I love the Christmas movies, and we talked about it before. There are a lot of them out there, and this morning on the Today Show, there was an announcement that Hallmark is has made another Christmas movie with one of the football teams. Now, you probably didn't know this, but last year
Yeah, you gotta
they had
take me back now. You
like
gotta give some
last year
context. Yeah.
they did a movie with the Kansas City Chiefs,
Really?
and they had the football players, and it was a really successful movie. So this year they have one coming out with the Buffalo Bills, and so they went to Buffalo and they were talking to the people there, and they found some fans, and so Hallmark has created this whole new movie, and I thought this might be a trend, year one, and then now this is year two.
Since it was
So
successful, I bet
yeah,
it will be. And,
yes,
do you enjoyed the movie? You enjoyed the
of course
passage
I
and you saw
do.
the okay.
Yeah.
You're like, "There's not a Hallmark movie I don't
Well
enjoy."
well, I mean, it's pretty scripted, but it's
Yeah.
still fun, and for those of us who like sports, it was kinda cool, and then watching the person I have a chance to go and interview the players because they give little cameo appearances of
Yeah,
the
they can do a
players
whole
of the
promo
team.
out of
Yeah,
this, yeah.
so it's coming up, so
You're
with the
excited about
Buffalo
it.
Bill well, yes, because, it takes football and it takes
It's a cool
yeah,
intersection.
yeah,
It's smart because I think it's
so
like 50% of, at least what you're talking about NFL. Aren't 50% of the NFL consumers women or something like that?
I don't
I
know.
feel like I saw that stat somewhere.
Okay.
So, anyway, I did just think it's
But
smart.
yeah, but there are so it is smart. Well, I think the whole Christmas tradition that has now taken place with all of the movies that look at 3 networks now have them on 24/7. So from now to the first of the year. So it's
Who knows?
cool.
I have yet to have seen a Christmas, but also I'm knee deep in my dramas.
Mhm.
But you are bringing the Christmas spirit,
I,
so I still get
and
my dose, which
and
is
it
nice.
begins, and it begins. Yes. So that's good. Well, it's been a busy time, and we have some things going on in the foreseeable future. But
Rolling towards the end of the year.
how
Can you
about
believe
that?
that it's almost the end of 2025?
No, I can't.
I know.
I cannot. But this has been exciting for us because we've
Yeah.
created this new podcast and we have some wonderful things that are going to be happening in the foreseeable
Yes, we
future.
do.
And so So this is good. So
Awesome.
thank
Well, it was a pleasure as always. And for all of you listening, thank you so much. And please don't forget to like and subscribe and continue to listen. And we will see you next week.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.